of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, it's great to see everybody here. It really is. And so we always start with the school and community section in which we invite public participation. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to our secretary, Emily Rosenthal.
Thank you. So the board welcomes public comment at our meetings. When speaking, please state your name and address. Comments are limited to 3 minutes in order to ensure that all interested parties have an opportunity to speak. Please speak on one topic per public comment session. We're happy to hear from our community, but at a business meeting, it should not be expected that the board or administration will respond. Neither public comment session this evening is a time for public discussion. If necessary, the community member will be contacted for follow-up. Given that we do not have any members of the public here in person, Wendy, would you like to let us know if we have any members of the public on Zoom?
We do have 4 members of the public, but no one has their hands raised at the moment.
Okay, so if you'd like to comment, you can just raise your hand and Wendy will call on you and allow you to speak.
We don't have any takers at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Wendy.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Emily. And there'll be another chance for people to speak after the superintendent's report, board member comments. At which point, I'll turn it over to Dr. Craig Cook, our superintendent. And
Thank you, Chairman Cowan, and welcome everybody. We gave the board a small token of our appreciation, some coffee mugs and fidget spinners for making it through a difficult year and being so flexible on all our different mediums. Appreciate all your support throughout the year. Extended school year started today, so we had 100 students join us, a little bit over 100 students join us at Brown School for our extended school year special ed program. So it's great to get that underway and have students back with us after an unusually long break between the end of the school year and extended school year. So that's great. Happy to share, just received word from CABE, which is the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education, that the Board of Ed received 2 awards on communication from CABE. It's called the I get this right, Bonnie R. Carney Award for Excellence in Educational Communications. It was for the Daniel Hand High School Program of Studies, and then the Madison District website. So we'll receive those awards. And district, and that will be on display at the CABE CAPS Convention, which is planned for November 2021. So it'd be great to have that event back and have Madison's success shown there. Also pleased to share that our ESSER 3 grant was approved today. Gail received the call this morning with a couple questions, and then shortly thereafter we received an email that said it was approved. So now our ESSER 2 and our ESSER 3 grant have been approved by the state for approximately $1.2 million. So it's great. Thank you for Gail with all your work leading those grants. I know it wasn't easy to get through that, but it's because I think we were one of 10 districts that had the ESSER 3 grant in by this point, and I imagine we were one of the first to get that approved. So it's good to get those out of the way. And we're still waiting word on the school security grant, which was submitted earlier this month. And so we're hopeful to get some matching funds for that. Thank you to Art Sickle and Bill McMahon for their work on that. Board received some reports from us recently. We have preliminary results from state assessments, and so we're waiting for the full results, and we'll do a presentation for the board in the fall on that. Our SBAC scores for students that tested in person, which is for us has been the majority, and really pleased with the principal's efforts to have students even who were learning fully remote come in and take the assessments in an environment that they were comfortable with. We did have several students do the assessments outside, so those are still being scored, I guess, and will be added to our results. We do not have any state or DER comparisons, which for this year in particular is very important because it's hard to compare our results during a pandemic with pre-pandemic 2 years ago. As you know, we didn't have the assessments in 2020. We did see strong results in grades 7 and 8. We also see some concerns in our lower grades, particularly in grades 3, and certainly are already planning on how to address those concerns. For students coming up, we, as the board knows, we've added intervention, and as for that grade 3 class going into 4th grade, we'll have additional support for them as well. State Science Assessment, also known as the NGSS, which is given in grades 5, 8, and 11, also showed some strong results, particularly in grades 8 and grade 11. It's 20% growth when you compare 2 years back for grade 8, 26% growth for grade 11. So those were really good to see. And also we've given the board our EASY CBM, which is our internal assessment, which will be presented, it's planned to be presented to the curriculum committee in the fall. So we'll definitely use these results as we plan instruction for the start of next school year. As the board is aware, the state's not using this information as part of an accountability index, but we're using it as more of a baseline for future work. And we'll look at how that fits into the accountability index and as we build district improvement, district development plans and district school development plans for the buildings. We'll certainly be using that information, converting that to our calculation for an index for them to work from. And I will work with the executive committee to talk about, this summer we'll work on a schedule of presentations for the fall as we look to present to the board and the public SAT, SBAC, NGSS, AP, and other results as well. The other item I had for you from the agenda is the board's had several discussions on the potential referendum date for a new elementary school project. Recent meetings have narrowed the discussions down to 2 potential dates, December 7th and February 15th was really what we were targeting. There's certainly some room within those timeframes as well. But we did talk previously about getting it completed by March, so certainly February 15th looked like a good date for us. We're not asking the board for a decision tonight, but it'd be helpful for it to have future and further guidance on a preferred date. As a reminder, both dates would open the building for the start of the 2025-26 school year. In an estimated quiet period from our bond counsel, so we're waiting for our new bond counsel to weigh on this, but our previous bond counsel had sent the town memo back in 2020. It would be basically 2 weeks prior to those dates because it's not tied to municipal elections. So for instance, with a February 15th date, if depending on when the exact date that the Board of Selectmen would set the question, it could be a quiet period starting on February 1st or maybe slightly before that, depending on the schedule. So as I met with Bill McMinn today and Chuck Warrington from Colliers, who's well known to the board, we were most comfortable with February 15th of those 2 potential dates, but wanted to again hear from the board as we start to move forward and work with the town on that. So I'll pass that on to you for any questions or.
Yeah, we'll open it up for board discussion.
I have a question first. Why not January? Why do we go from December to February? Were there any dates in January that were considered?
I think as we've looked at when other districts typically do these referendum type questions, and most likely this would not be the only question brought forward. It's likely that the town would look for potentially an answer on Academy School and Island. And so typically we stay away from January due to weather concerns, maybe travel concerns for the public. And so after the holidays, typically there might be some time to get back into the swing of things.
And then when is President's Day?
21st. Yeah, it's typically.
I was just looking at that. Thank you.
There's no school 21 or 22.
Okay, so it's the week before, right?
So, all right, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna ask if you could share some of the reasons why February date is more time.
Really, because we have not had the chance to have some in-person meetings with the public, it would really give us the full fall and into the winter. The reason we stayed away from the November date is because it is tied to the municipal election. The quiet period would start very early September, so it would not give us any time of the school year. We felt that December might be too close to the other referendum question, and also make sure we allow to get the other two questions set. That's what I believe that the town's intention is, to bring those two questions forward.
What is the timing on when you'd like us to, are we going to vote on the date, or are you going to make the recommendation and how's that gonna work?
So we would be bringing back, I think in August, a little bit more detailed plan, but we were working with the first selectman. We wanted to give her some feedback too, because as I mentioned, there's other questions that would be determined. So she is meeting it's later this week or early next week. It's the 19th with the board of selectmen. So, and we didn't have a meeting in between, so she was hoping for some direction. I'd shared previous conversations we looked at February and March.
So that means that, because we don't meet again until August 17th, that we don't take action tonight on either one. I mean, say we all decide we want it December, there's nothing happening in this whole month in terms of outreach or.
I think we'll start to plan, so we would have in preparing some marketing materials, so we're in that process, so it wouldn't necessarily impact us greatly, I wouldn't say. You know, we're gonna still go forward, we're doing a thought exchange, we're doing, preparing some other documents, so I don't think it would hold us up too much.
Do we know if either one will lead to a school closure? Or will both lead to a school closure?
So that's a good question. I'm meeting with First Selectman Lyons and the Election Commission on that. They would like to use school buildings. We've certainly done that before, where we've used ground without closure. I think that we probably would be looking at a potential closure, just because depending on where things are COVID-wise and the turnout expected. So I think that we may look at a distance learning day on that. But I would like to certainly get to the point where we're not having to do that for the budget referendum or any type of
It's still okay to have remote days if we choose.
So that's also something I'm working on this summer. We do not have guidance from the state, but we have 183 school days. So 3 days beyond the 180 we certainly could use as distance learning days.
I attended the Board of Selectmen meeting, the last meeting, where they did a lot of talk about Highland Avenue as well as Academy. They had some public discussion about the Academy referendum, and they are ready to go. And so, my impression from that meeting was that the Board of Selectmen would like those three things to all go together. So again, my feeling is hasn't changed. I think December is my preference. I think this has been on the docket for longer than I've been on the board, and I think the public deserves an opportunity to speak about it and using their voice to vote. Our buildings are only getting older. December typically, I mean, it was warmer on Christmas Day than it was on 4th of July this year, so I think, weather isn't as much of a factor in December. If, history helps us at all with that, but I think a lot hinges on this. I think the community deserves an opportunity to speak about it, and I think we really, between, the summer months, which I don't think we should take off in terms of speaking about this. I think social media and FAQs and things like that are great things to start pushing out to the community so that there are some facts out there, and then really doing some community forums once the school year begins with open houses and things like that to really educate the community on what we've been through as a board over the past 10 years to get to this point. And so I feel like the community deserves a chance to weigh in at this point.
Not to change the subject, but I just, had a question regarding the SBAC results or SAT. So in the past, quite some time in the past, the superintendent had given, or the principals had given a presentation in each school, say like the Ryerson principal gave a presentation of the current test results and how it compared to past results. And then that was in the very beginning of the SBACs, and then they stopped. And it also sort of coincided with scores not doing that great. But I'm wondering if you intend to do something like that as well, so that the parents can come and learn about the testing, how it's done, what it means, what the scores mean, and how it, as a child.
So when you say in the school, it was for families at the school level?
Yeah, it was like the
tied
PTO
to
sort of
something.
helped
Okay.
put it on, and so the parents could come. Sometimes it was in conjunction with a PTO meeting, and sometimes the superintendent was there, and sometimes
Yeah.
not.
Right. So I would certainly see our schools sharing their school development plans with, which would be a broader, I think, topic as they would share that with the public, and so SBAC scores would be part of that. So you look at, say, Ryerson or Jeffrey, they'd be sharing that as part of it, which would really be the whole school's work, but mostly grade 3 results, or just grade 3 results. But they then also share social emotional learning goals for the building, and other academic goals for the building that would impact all grade levels. So I think it would hopefully bring even maybe a bigger audience out, but absolutely that would be part of, SBAC would be part of that.
Because I know in the past when they stopped doing it, that there was chatter from the parents like, how come we don't get the information anymore, and the SBAC results in particular, they take so long to come back,
Right.
kind of like falls off the radar,
I think some of it's
Yes.
driven by the PTOs though, because I never had that at Jeffrey,
Oh, really?
ever.
We definitely had it at Ryerson.
So I
State has
think,
been doing
again,
better.
if the PTO is invited,
Okay. State has been doing better about getting the results back. We used to get them back in like sometimes September, October.
I think also, post-pandemic, I think there's a lot more parents that are much more aware of how their child is doing or what's going on in the schools than perhaps they were previously, and are probably interested.
Are there any additional comments or questions on the report? Okay, I'd like to take it back to the referendum date. So I think the bottom line is that we would have to decide by the August 17th meeting on a date that we formally endorse that, go to the Board of Selectmen. I know the Board of Selectmen are looking for guidance on this.
Yes.
So could we get a motion to, well, we could include this as an agenda item next meeting, or we could vote tonight if people feel they have enough information or feel strongly enough about it. And that's, it's not on the agenda, but we could introduce a motion if people are so inclined. Dr. Cook, I don't know if it's rushing the issue at all, or there are things we can do regardless before the August 17th meeting. We'll be working on it anyway. So.
I mean, I think we really sparked a lot of enthusiasm and energy when we had the forum in May. And then it's kind of been quiet since then. So I agree. Either way, I think we need to keep the momentum going so that people understand what the question is and what the backup is if the referendum doesn't pass. But again, like I think even as a board, I feel very strongly that the community at this point deserves their opportunity to vote. But more than that, we're kind of handcuffed in a lot of ways on CIP, on other projects that we don't know which direction, and the people that are on the facilities committee, it was really hard. Like, what do we put in there? Because if the referendum goes, then this is a no-brainer. If it doesn't go, then we should maybe be focusing on this. And so there's a lot of things that even as a board, we it slows us down on. And like I said, this has been studied, we've spent a lot of money on studies and options, and there were 60-something options that came out of the tri-board committee. This option was endorsed by all 3 boards way back when, and I know all the boards are different. They're gonna be different again potentially in November, or after the November municipal. So I just think at this point, it's time to let the community weigh in.
So we technically need 2 motions, right? One to vote on the February date and one to vote on the December date. We're not gonna vote on both in the same vote.
One to add it to the agenda.
You don't need to add to the agenda if someone's going to make a motion from the floor, but you could do this just as an idea. This is not a motion I'm making, it's just discussion. But it's possible that we could make a motion to, for example, recommend December 7th, unless it's determined by the Board of Selectmen that that's not feasible, and in which case we would endorse February 15th, or whatever 15th. So
That's only if you want to vote for December, so I guess.
Right.
or the inverse,
Right.
if you wanted to start from that direction.
So they had the other 2 questions they wanted to put on to vote on the same time.
Potentially.
That seems like
That was the way
So
the
if
discussion
they-
was going.
Well, I can understand why, I mean,
Sure.
it saves a lot of money. So if that is the case, are they ready to go by these dates? Is that the guidance they're looking for, like?
I would not speak for the academy, but it sure seemed like that from the statement that they read. And they would like it to be standalone, was also said. So again, none of that's up to us. I think for us, our decision is just, are we ready to move forward?
How long is the quiet period?
2 weeks.
From what we have from previous bond council, and I know I have lots of what ifs, sorry, but it was 2 weeks prior to when they take their vote on it.
Yeah, my concern about December is the thick of budgets. When we start doing our budgets, and I feel like things get heated anyway, and everybody starts thinking about, you're spending too much money, blah, 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 and I don't think having a vote on a referendum, that's good timing for a vote on a referendum to spend more money. That would be my concern. I get like having it out there, but I would want to separate it from that.
But it's always something.
I
We're
know,
ready to
it-
go,
right.
and then COVID happened, and it's, I mean, at some point, we gotta move. It's my view.
So if it was December 7th, just supposing, then a quiet period is 2 weeks prior.
Yeah. Thanksgiving.
That's Thanksgiving-ish. So then the last time that you could put any sort of, not any information, but you know what I mean, information out would be the week before Thanksgiving.
And then we determined
That's
that
a tough time.
there is no holiday occurring on December 7th. So,
It's easy to ask.
It's a
It's
bad-
easy to
Well,
look at.
Well, on the one hand, it's a great anniversary when you started, and on the other hand, it's property.
We call it a holiday.
there are no major celebrated holidays happening on that day. There are remembrances and observances. The day after Valentine's Day, will you get people out after their big Monday night celebration?
Valentine's Day.
So, how do we move?
I have a couple comments. I am fairly ambivalent. It's a 2-month difference. I agree 100% that people need to have the right to vote and need to get their voices heard. Whether that's in December, February, the weather I think is equally iffy. I hear what you're saying, happy about the budget. I also am concerned too soon after an election, people might be like, I just voted and I was just there. And all things being equal, I would sort of defer, Dr. Cook, to what your preference is. And if you feel that a February date gives more time, we can, the fall is very busy. And I know we want to keep the momentum going, but I think regardless, if we set a date, and this is happening February 15th, it prolongs it 2 months, but it does move us forward. And if we get a couple extra sessions in after the holidays when people are back and there's not much else to do, I don't see any disadvantage. The school would still open at the same time and our timeline isn't much changed.
Can I just add one thing about budget? We usually don't even get our budget books until like the end of December.
Yeah, it's more committee work, I suppose, you're doing.
Well, we definitely start, but that's when it gets meaty. That's when we have our budget workshops and all that is after the holidays.
Valentine's Day lends itself to such a good marketing campaign for
Ah,
this, right?
Love your schools.
Yeah, yes,
That's
right.
cute.
I think we argue about the budget all winter, I will say that. I think the one advantage of December 7th, and I also sort of on the same page about, like, I've heard a lot of people say December. I've heard people say it's gotta be February. I don't know that we can be certain one way or the other. I will say December 7th is interesting only because sort of it feels like in the winter in Madison in particular, people are just like walled off and not communicating as much as they do during all the sports and all the activities leading up to sort of the Thanksgiving timeframe. So will we be better about having those one-on-one conversations through the fall leading up to December 7th? I'd say probably, rather than, sort of major holidays in December and then winter break and then kind of jumping right back into it. But on the other hand, February also seems totally viable. And the main thing I'm worried about when I was suggesting that possible motion is if we make a motion and it's very definitive and then the board of selectmen can't pivot as needed if they want to get everything on one ballot. So
Yeah, I think working backwards, it doesn't make a difference because the schools will open
Right.
25, 26 anyway. If for no other reason, I'm in favor of the February date because it gives a little more of a buffer for other boards to iron out any problems they may have, and or it buys a little time for any sort of property negotiations that may be taking place. So that's, I would probably have balance favor of February.
I'm sort of like Emily, where I sort of ambivalent about both, but I feel like December is such a busy month, and we just forget, I think, how everybody tries to cram so much into December. And that might not be the item that people will focus on. And so I like the February date there.
Funny, because Greg, you were saying, oh, December, and then, oh, I'm leaning towards December, then you switch to February, I'm like, oh, I'm leaning towards February.
Yeah, there's kind of,
Kind of like on the fence with it, but I kind of.
So January.
It's good, like we
I don't know why
have a
January.
preference for this with a thought backup of that, right?
I think that's.
But I think we should, I don't know what waiting another month, I think everybody kind of has their opinion.
But there's no other information that we can get that way.
Right.
And I think the other boards.
They need to know. We just gotta get on the calendar.
So excuse me, Galen, Tom Pellegrino has his
Oh,
hand raised.
Just speak up and give a verbal hip check,
No, I think it's weird enough for me to be the big weird head in the sky. I'm sorry about that. I think Dr. Cook, you covered a little bit your advocacy for the February date, but just if you wouldn't mind, and you may have covered it, I apologize, but could you just give basically what you think is probably the biggest con to do it in December from your perspective?
yeah, I was just looking, having been kind of shut down to public meetings and that access, to have as much time after we come back and understand what the summer means and how much people are traveling, just having that time. And then the concern about right after the other municipal election, how close that is, and can we get people out back to vote again, would be the concern.
Okay.
But again, ultimately, it's the decision of the Board of Selectmen, and so if we made a motion that gave them some options, I think we'll do our best to make either one work. So,
Should we just tell them like any time between December and February?
Thank you.
could we also make a motion that just says we recommend one of these two?
Yes, I think that would be,
But the other one's good too.
Let them sort it.
right, that's what we should wordsmith it, is to say, we recommend this date for a possible referendum.
With
Maybe
a
I'm
backup,
sure
With a
we-
backup, with a backup date.
So it sounds like people are saying February with a backup in December. Most
That's the.
Well,
all.
Oh, I mean, hard.
It's the hard December.
I mean, just in my conversations with the board of selectmen, they need us to move forward on a lot. So 2 months might mean nothing to us, it means something to them,
So thinking back and said December 7th, I think we would be like, okay.
Right, maybe.
Could we also make a motion that just says we recommend that you do it on one of these 2 days? Or let them sort it.
Do they really need us to pick one?
I think,
I
right,
don't know.
we're ready, we're Pick a date, can we make a
I think they
motion
want our
to ask the board of selectmen to pick a date?
Alright, I think, yeah,
We should
I
have
think
a-
everybody's got their minds pretty.
We should have a formal recommendation on a preferred date.
And then the final say goes to them, so if they don't want to make change it.
Let's just,
Oh, I mean,
Just make a motion.
wait, what is the motion that I'm making?
make,
I'm making a motion that the, Board of Ed recommends the referendum on February, a preference for the referendum on February 15th with a backup date if that is not amenable to the Board of Selectmen on December 7th.
second,
Second? No, 7th.
no, she said.
Oh,
No, no, no.
I second.
That was a
You're not-
second.
I was
Okay, I'm like,
seconding.
I
It's not good.
Yeah.
I was seconding your motion.
Okay.
All right, is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor of the motion that the Board of Education recommends the February 15th, 2022 date for referendum with a backup as December 7th, 2021. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All opposed? We need conditions, all right.
No, I
Abstaining?
mean, again,
Abstentions?
I just want to be on the record.
Motion carries 7-1. Violet is not here. Okay, thank you very much. Good discussion. Are there any further board member comments about anything presented with the board or otherwise? Right, hearing none, we'll move along, and this is our second bite at the apple to get public input. So Wendy, if there's anybody online who has a question, or we'll pause and let that happen.
We have, let's see, 5 members of the public signed on, and no one has their hands raised at the moment.
We'll wait a beat and then move on. Thank you. We do not have a Board of Selectmen report tonight, so we can move to our consent agenda. And these cover line item transfers as of July 5th, 2021, and also budget expenditures as of July 2nd, 2021. The items are listed in your board packet. Do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay, Greg?
Second.
Emily? Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up are committee reports.
No report.
No report. Thank you, Diane. No report for curriculum. Dr. Pellegrino, anything for communications?
No report from communications.
Okay, facilities, I know we'll take her there.
Yes.
All right.
The Facilities Committee had a special meeting this evening at 5:30. The primary item on the agenda was the review of the CIP plan for 2022-23. That has all been shared via email with the entire board, and it will be up for full board approval at our August 17th meeting. But Mr. McMinn did give an update on the CIP plan. At our last meeting, we had asked him, because there was pretty significant spikes in year-to-year expenditures over the CIP, if there could be any smoothing out of those spikes and expenses. So we did do some moving around. The primary expenses for the CIP for 2022-23 at Daniel Hand are stage lighting at Colson, replacing the lockers and planning for bathroom ADA updates. These were both items that had been put off for a significant period of time. Work at Brown includes, Bill did move some items forward to help smooth out the expenses. So planning for parking expansion at Brown and window replacement for the east wing. Athletics, the expenses are improvements to baseball fields and other fields and lights for the baseball field. We did discuss a few years down the line, money set aside for planning and construction of new playground equipment for kindergartners at Brown. We did discuss this and we will continue to. Bill will move planning up a year so that any new structure would be in place for kindergartners if and when they were to start there. We did talk about whether the existing playground at Brown would suffice, as it is technically rated for ages 5 through 12, but there are concerns about having enough space for that many children as it will be such a bigger school, and also the need to possibly have a separate play area for younger children. So stay tuned on the playground, but that will be several years down the line. The total CIP for 2022-23 is $951,000, $951,832. Bill tried to flatten it out as much as he could, recognizing that this is a plan, these are planning documents, capital projects that someone needs to be prioritized, and if we need to revisit it next year, we can, but that's something that needs to be done in tandem as well. So like I said, it will come to you for full board approval on August 17th, unless Bill needs it sooner, then he'll let us know. Bill also gave some general updates. First of all, he let us know that the Facilities Department has selected DRA architects for architectural services and design for the 2 front entries to both Polson and Brown schools. They put out an RFP, 7 firms submitted bids, and Bill interviewed the 2 lower bids, but determined that they do not bring adequate school experience for the work being done to these entries, especially considering security and other enhancements. So DRA was selected. The design will be finalized this fall with construction planned for next summer and the entrance ready for September 2023. They'll also reported on other projects. The carports are moving along. Hopefully will be done soon. He gave an update on repairs at Daniel Hand after the water damage earlier this year. Custodian training will be underway in August. There has been a new head custodian hired. They're replacing some exterior doors at Polson and Jeffrey that they were just not so easy to open, especially in an emergency. He also discussed ongoing conversations about bike trail access behind Brown. There was no public comment, and we adjourned at 6:15. End of report.
Okay, thank you, Emily.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
This is probably more related to the referendum possibility than the facilities report, but since you raised the playgrounds, I can't remember if I've asked this before, so I'm sorry if I'm asking it again. At the potential new school in the renewal plan, the playground at that elementary school, will there be time in the timeline for a similar process as existed at Brown in terms of student feedback and teacher feedback and things like that? Is that built into the timeline or not?
Yes, not formally, but I know that that's always been the process there, and I think it's a great process, and so I think we would certainly utilize that ability to do that, as that would be later on in the project. The building committee would certainly want that. Great.
You're definitely gonna write this down.
Yes, I did.
And Bill even mentioned that tonight when we were talking about any kindergarten conditions that involving student voices as much as possible, as well as faculty and staff in that process. So I think he's definitely tuned to that.
Thank you. Katie, did we have a finance committee meeting?
We did not, but I had a brief update with positive news that we are back in the black. We due to the line item transfers that and closing the books that I had the authority to do with Stacy, and she, based on that, we have about a balance of about $200,000. $200,000, which is great. There could still be potentially before the end of July another line item transfer, but I just wanted the board to know that that is the update.
Thank you, any questions, comments?
Thank you to Stacy, that's my comment.
Yeah, she doesn't have anything else.
She's an addition.
Violet is not here today, so I'll just give a brief report on personnel. The Personnel Committee met on June 28th concerning the ongoing Teamsters negotiations. And I will have to check the dates of importance to update you in the next meeting. More or less on hiatus right now. Are there any questions or concerns? Personnel? All right. Anything to say, Kathy?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right. And Happy, how about policy?
Policy committee met this evening. We did, to explain what we did. I keep thinking like through the wording of it. So there are three policies in the 3000 series that deal with budget adoption, financial records, and line item transfers. So we are recommending that those are repealed and replaced with one policy, which was really crafted by the administration, taking into consideration pieces of the other policies that we are repealing. And then there's two other policies, the fiscal year and material services, which we're also recommending her to be repealed. However, there were some details in the current policy that we asked Dr. Cook to go back and just sort of wordsmith some of it and fine tune it, so it's not ready for first reading. It will come to you guys next meeting. There was no public comment. We also did talk about in a future meeting, probably our next meeting, discussing some of the policies around admitting out of district students, just making sure that we have that all buttoned up so that people are very clear about what it costs and what's entailed and so forth.
Okay, thank you, Happy. Are there any questions or further discussion? All right. And Katie, I'm coming back to you for learn.
So we had a meeting in June, and similar to tonight, had a little celebration for a job well done for Learn, and they did a great presentation on the state of the agency, which is going on, and is interested in the position.
Thank you. Hearing no questions, we'll move to the next action item, which is a motion to approve the disposal of used books and equipment. And do I have a motion for that?
Second.
Okay, sorry, who got the first?
Sorry.
Thank you, Katie. All right. All right, so we have a very lengthy list. Hope everybody had a chance to review it, notice some of it. And Diana, do you have questions? All right.
So, there's actually no equipment, it's just all books.
Okay.
So I really think it should be a motion, disposal of used books. Just, to be more specific.
Oh, Greg, you could.
I am only the secretary.
Oh, I'm sorry, Katie.
Oh, Katie. I would like to make a motion to remove the word equipment.
Do we need another motion later to dispose of the printout of?
Yes,
Yes.
I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Names of paper.
It will be ecologically conscious. All right, are there any further questions or discussions? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Sorry, Kathy. All opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 8-0. Next, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the June 22nd, 2021 Board of Education meeting. So motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Are there any, anybody want to ask questions? All right, good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
And happy abstains. And Tom abstains. Thank you.
Thank you.
So motion carries 5-0. We have, if you have any future agenda items for our next meeting on August 17th, please feel free to submit them. Meetings and dates of importance are listed in your packet. And we'll have to tell Violet that we had the world's shortest meeting. She's actually not here today. Sorry. Yeah. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Oh, wow. Quick. All right. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Abstentions, motion carries.